networking session. Thank you. As you heard during the networking session, talking about, my journey in mental health and not only from my own reflection and making sure that I maintain my wits about me every day, because I've worked in some very stressful organizations, very chaotic and demanding organizations, but also helping others navigate their career and recognizing the impact of stress that it has on our careers. We lose good people. People end up just losing themselves as well, right? They turn into, they pretty much morph into a different person. We don't recognize them. Then there is even more severe aspects of it, depression, and just poor choices with coping mechanisms, or not the right ones, I should say. So all of that made me consider, goodness, what can I do for my own team, for the people that I support, and hence this presentation here. So the one of the key things too, within the last, I would say maybe 3 or 4 years, I made the solid commitment that I was going to live life on my terms. I'm young. I think I got another 45, 50 years in front of me. And I figure that, goodness, I think so. But what if tomorrow never comes? Could I say that I have lived a truly fulfilled life? So I was done with, not having boundaries, making sure that oxygen mask first, making sure that I was taking care of myself. Because even in my corporate world, if I don't take care of myself, I'm useless to my team, to my organization, and the people that I serve. So about 5 years ago, I had that reality, and then making sure that I am on that journey to do things that are fulfilling to me, recognizing where I need to make decisions, how can I reignite my own passion on a variety of things that I like to do. And then within the last 20 years of my corporate career, just, having these multiple points that I had to reignite myself. I had to make sure that I stayed in the same headspace to continue going. So this is where the underlying significance of this presentation comes from. Okay, let's make sure that I can move my mouse here. Hold on. All right, so let's get started. In the chat, tell me where you think you are on the scale of stress in your life now. And we're talking about bad stress. You're overwhelmed. You barely made it here today. You're triple tasking in the background. Where are you at? Or maybe even if you're retired, sometimes, I have a lot of colleagues, they've retired. It's like, my life is so much busier than my corporate life. What happened, Nicole? So put in the chat for me, how are you feeling? Are you happy as a clam, or are you like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I get up every day? What part of the scale are you on? And there we go. I can see the chat now. 3, 4, 2. So a lot of people on the lower end. That's nice. That's good to see. Right in the middle. Oftentimes I ask people, are they stressed? And usually like, no, I'm doing okay. Or even a simple, hi, how are you? Most people say that they're doing well. But if I were to sit and have a conversation, pretty soon the gates open up, and then we start talking about all the things that are going on and recognizing how stressed they are. So a lot of us too, not saying that you, for those of you answered on the lower end, but a lot of people do put up that front. They don't necessarily want to share their woes, even though misery loves company. A lot of times we feel very guilty about sharing how we feel because of the perception of others on us. They're going to think we're weaklings. They're going to think that I can't handle it. I got this big title, and yet, I can't manage stress. So a lot of people are often very hesitant to share with us truly how they're feeling until you get, until you build that relationship. Some of us are at an 8, and you, Mark, yeah, you've been as high as an 8. I mean, I feel like I've been as high as an 8 numerous times in my career. I must say I've handled it, and because of that, I've grown. But there are times that you question, why am I doing this? What do I need to do here? Is this the right decision for me? So, when you think about what scale you're on, you need to lean into that, because if this is not easing, you're at a 6, you're at a 7, and 3 months later, you're still there. We need to be cautious about that, because once that good stress turns into bad stress, and then bad stress into chronic stress, that's where we see significant health problems. And we're going to talk about that. So the journey is going to be talking about, some of the experiences, the impact of stress, and then giving you some strategies to, at least make some decisions to reignite your career, or at least reduce the level of stress that you're experiencing. So let's start here. And for those of you who are leaders in the group, this is a very good strategy to try with your team, or even if anything, just try with your friends. The simple question of, hey Nicole, how are you doing? Usually solicits a casual answer, right? Maybe somebody would tell you, oh goodness, it's been the week, right? I had these appointments, my kids in soccer, all of these things that you start talking about. But for the most part, we're like, yeah, everything is good, or, could be better. And we have some superficial conversations there. Most of us, have a couple fires burning in life, family, friends, job, money, all sorts of things. But really, when you change the tone of that question and you say, no, Nicole, how are you really doing? Then we start understanding the whole host of fires burning within. And especially, again, in corporate America, seeing this a lot of times, that people are just drowning in work. We're doing more with less. We're not having the right resources. There are so many demands. The operation is on fire. So you're juggling multiple initiatives, and that leads to a lot of stress. In a recent conversation on the same topic, I asked several leaders the same question, and some even admitted to having Sunday evening anxiety. I am dreading going to the office on Monday. I'm unable to sleep because I'm thinking about the emails, I'm thinking about the week ahead, and having that real bad anxiety associated with it. So, this is, I think, crucial for those of you that are leaders, ensuring that you're asking the question in a deeper manner. Go from, hey, Nicole, how are you doing? How's your weekend? To having moments, doesn't need to be every day, but having moments, touch points with your team to ask, no, tell me, how are you really doing? And that, I tell you, 9 out of 10 times, it solicits deeper conversation and people start opening up. My aunt just died, or this person's sick, I'm dealing with this, I'm having relationship issues, all sorts of stuff starts coming to the surface. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a huge level of trust. Just changing the tone of that question allows people to open up. And this brings me to the significance of the topic. We know that stress is part of our everyday life, your job, your title, life itself. But the key problem here is that when it's left unmanaged, it can have serious consequences. And trust me, working in healthcare, people come in, with facial paralysis, with worst headache of their life, just unable to function. And a lot of it too, a good chunk of it is attributed to this is a symptom of stress. And, just again, not being able to navigate or manage it, especially if it's chronic stress, repeated stress over and over. I do a lot of work with the, graduates and talking about, being able to set themselves up for success. But whether it's new graduates or people who've been in the field 10, 15, 25 years, most of us learn kind of by way of experience, right? Experiential learning about how to manage stress. We don't necessarily have core courses to teach us, this is what you're going to face in life, this is what's going to happen in certain roles, and this is how you're going to manage it, to mitigate the stress. We don't get that rule book of life at any one point, right? We're learning as we go. So that's the other significance. We are just floundering, we're figuring it out, and some of us, we may have a good response for one situation, but pretty much crumble in another situation. And as the quote says here, it's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it. And again, seeing this within numerous teams is just not being able to share, for fear of, what other people think of them, just not having an outlet to properly deal with it, and just holding on to all of that on their own. So very, very detrimental to our team. Now, Stress is a good thing, right? We embrace the power of stress. This helps grow us. We take on stretch goals. We're able to really see what potential we have and be able to do things that we never imagined. For example, going through basic training, I was stressed for 4 weeks, living on little sleep, getting PT 3-4 times a day. And because I was so horrible at it, having additional duties with that. But that stress grew me, well, it broke me down, but then grew me into a stronger individual at the end of 4 weeks. So stress could have positive effects in our lives. We know this, right? Especially within the team, as leaders, we recognize the impact of stretching our employees to promote personal growth. So if we can harness that, we definitely can grow bigger than we are currently. So we know stress isn't bad, right? You got the gazelle there hanging out, going about life okay. But, there are some situations that can be stressed and they can get away from it. Hold on, let me mute. Mark, I'm going to mute you there for a second. So, but overall, stress doesn't necessarily need to be bad. We have situations that we're able to push ourselves and see what we're fully capable of. We're able to show up and shine beyond our, our imagination. And especially, this is so wonderful to see in our team. I actually just hired somebody as part of my team and new role. I'm giving some training and talk about stress, right? But that was Monday. It's hard until it becomes easy. It's Thursday now, and she is sailing like if she'd been doing this for the last 6 months of her life. So given that stressful situation, being able to apply herself and of course come out on top of this. So not all stress is bad. But if we don't have the right strategies and the right techniques and we're not quick enough to manage it, this is what can happen. We can be eaten alive, right? And we want to make sure that, again, that the world doesn't get the best of us. I like to tell people it's like, your job life is like a live wire. And if we don't handle that with care, if we don't get a hold of it, we're going to be thrown here, there, and everywhere. And unfortunately, going to get beaten up in the process. So understanding how to manage it is going to be key for our survival. So this is where the concern is when good stress goes bad. If you remember the term, good stress is eustress. EU with stress on it. But it's when that eustress goes bad is when we need to be cognizant of the impact. So when that good stress goes bad, it's because of our workload overcommitment, financial pressures, personal and professional, the interpersonal conflicts at work. Right now, I have about 4 coaching clients that they're all experiencing bullying. I have someone who's over 60, somebody in mid-40s, and then 2 younger ones. And talk about, the challenges in navigating it, because so many factors become crucial in recognizing how you're going to deal with it. Interpersonal conflicts is rampant across organizations, and especially if the culture is a toxic one. Then, as I noted at the beginning, I know my style or my personality trait is that I'm a giver. I have to recognize that because I can find myself in situations wanting to give, wanting to, extend myself at the cost to myself. So you have to recognize too, in your role or your dominant personality trait, are you a giver? Givers are more prone to chronic stress because they overwhelm themselves. They got so many things that they want to do, so many responsibilities. They cannot say no. So, and of course, there are various levels of that. So being able to recognize what is your dominant style, because that will be an understanding that is going to make you more prone to chronic stress. Then depending on your job, you may be exposed to occupational trauma. For example, us in healthcare, we're seeing people that have really bad accidents. We're seeing some gruesome stuff. So that can have some significant impact on us just dealing with that. When I got started in radiology, I think it took me 5 years to scan a child without feeling teary-eyed or actually crying. That's how long it took me to navigate that process. Here I am, and really what triggered me was here I am yelling at my kids at home, but here is somebody trying to make the decision of what is going to be the next step. Is their kid going to be with them the next day? So every time we were to put a kid to sleep on the table, it would just break me apart. So you have that occupational trauma associated. Depending on your roles, right? Depending on the people you serve, the type of equipment, whatever it is that you're doing, you can experience occupational trauma, which of course then adds to long-term stress, chronic stress. But over time, what is intriguing here is that over time, we become immune to this. We don't even recognize that we are facing stress because this is our everyday life. We become chaotic junkies. We thrive on these things. We like environments like this. And that's also based on your personality as well. But we can morph into this person that this is what we survive on. We don't even recognize that. Other people see changes on us, but chronic stress could morph us into completely different people. And then, of course, that can have long-term impacts from your PTSD to your depression, burnout, exhaustion, decreased productivity, cynicism, different in personality, and not to mention changes in your overall behavior, as well as engaging in, unhealthy coping strategies. What are some of the impact to stress? And I'm giving you all this lead up because sometimes, I have conversations with folks and they don't even recognize or don't want to admit that they're stressed. So emphasizing these points to make you think, you know what, that's me. Or maybe I need to think about this some more. Maybe I need to adjust my coping mechanisms, or I need to have conversations. So I start with this to really let it settle in, to help you reflect and understand what are you experiencing. When it comes to your job, one of the key things that lead to stress are the organizational factors. We talked about culture, poor work culture, unsupportive, lack of management or not good management, the expectations of the organizations that can lead to chronic stress. And some of us would tolerate it because we need the job. We don't want to move. Ageism is a real thing. In my area, there's not many jobs. I'm going to lose my benefits. So many factors prevent us sometimes from changing careers, changing jobs, and we just deal with the situation. It's like staying in a bad relationship over time because of the kids, right? You're thinking about something else other than the impact to yourself. And some organizations have a lot of preventative measures, their employee programs, but again, not everybody is going to utilize that. I can tell you, I would be the first one to tell you, I am a strong individual. I don't need any mental health support, but quickly recognizing that it's not just because I feel that I'm a strong individual, but mental health support helps you in so many ways. Now, I had a harsh reality of recognizing that I also needed support within the last few years of my career as well. So there is going to come a time that we hit that wall, but making sure, as we talked earlier on, being proactive so you never get to that point. I am to the point that I can recognize when I'm at the edge, when I'm feeling like I'm facing burnout or I'm exhausted, and being able to say, okay, this is the signs and symptoms. What are you going to do about it? Not wait until I hit that brick wall and then having to recover from it. I had a manager who worked with me, and once I came into the organization, within maybe 60 days, she went on FMLA because of chronic stress. Prior to me coming on, she was, doing a lot of work, wearing multiple hats, and just ran herself into the ground. Me coming on board, having to, just added more to her plate with training, etc. She went into FMLA with hoping that I just needed a couple weeks off. Weeks turned into months, months turned into 2 quarters, and eventually it was a year, and then she just couldn't come back. She could not recover from a year of being in the position, the stress related to it. That was the first time somebody changed beyond the capacity that I recognized them in dealing with them. And it was sad because she was young, she had the energy, but she hit that brick wall so hard that even 12 months later, could not recover from it. So again, one of the underlying messages here too for all of you, making sure that you're proactive, you're being in tune with your body, you're recognizing your changes in attitude, how you're experiencing life, what other people are telling you, what your loved ones are experiencing with you, because you don't want to get to the point of no return. The psychological and physical impact could be permanent. So just being very, very mindful that this can lead to some long-term effects that we cannot undo. And here they are, there is, intriguingly, I would say I got into the space of really sharing about stress and the impact, maybe within the last 2 years or so. And I think just because my eyes have been more tuned into it, really seeing the impact from people being forgetful, cognitive dissociation, cognitive overload, emotional fatigue, just watching people's faces. When I go into organizations, that's what I'm that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at their energy, I'm looking at their face, the bags under their eyes, the disheveledness, the energy, the weight gain, all of these things are the impact of just chronic stress. Also, the personality changes or how short their fuse is. Especially in a training environment, you can see like it's just one more thing for somebody to do, piling on to the workload stress. So reflect on yourself from time to time and ask yourself, is this a sign of aging or is it a sign of stress? Is it because of the medication or is it stress? Too many times we deflect what we're experiencing on something else rather than being attentive that the underlying cause here could be stress related. And then a huge aspect here too is balancing work and life. We all have different things that we want to do outside of work, different responsibilities. I got 4 kids. I run a couple different businesses, and yeah, there's a lot to balance. So if we don't understand how to juggle all of these, then we can fall victim to just, circling down the drain if we don't get a lifeline to hold on to. And the problem for a lot of us is that if you have a high demanding, high stressful job and your life is high demanding, high stressful, then both of those just amplify, adding more to your overall quality of life. So I want to spend some time here. And of course, if you have any comments or questions, I'm looking at the box here, so please feel free to jump in if anything you want to share. But I want to pause for a second to truly emphasize the hidden cost of stress. This is why we need to have strategies to reignite ourselves and kind of draw a line in the sand and have a strategy to go forward. Because the impact to our physical health, I mentioned the psychological impact, but to our physical health is, I cannot begin to underline triple times the impact of stress on your physical health. Being so close to healthcare as well, seeing this firsthand, and then the long-term impact of it. Stress could affect every aspect of your health. And remember, your health is your wealth. I intend to live till a ripe old age of 90 something. And maybe by the time I get to that age, I can go into my hundreds if I can, still maintain walking and my cognitive abilities. But even if you retired and you say, yeah, I'm enjoying life, things are good, we still got to be cognizant to the impact of our physical health. The tension, the fatigue, and again, the chronic tasing of the stresses in life is what leads us to these chronic physical problems. Your high blood pressure. It's not just because you're aging and your vessels are getting stiff. It's also because of those changes in hormones and all of these metabolic reactions within your body that impacts your physical health. Your sleep disruptions, your emotional changes. How quickly are you quick to go from 0 to 100? Talking to your kids, your significant other, or just people. Road rage, dealing with customer service, recognizing how easy you get triggered. The tension, your posture, holding on, holding your body tight. A few years ago, this was probably at least 10 plus years ago, I started on a journey of, let me try this whole yoga meditation thing. My brain was too active. I didn't think it was for me. Yoga, yes, but not meditation. And, I'll come back to it with knowing that it has some benefits, and okay, I'll come back to it. No, it still didn't work. But again, now I'm more intentional about being focused on making sure that I have good physical health, mental well-being. I started back on, let me try this yoga thing, as yoga and meditation. And as I sat there in stillness and going through the motions of trying to relax from my face to my toes, I became so aware of how tense my body was. Like I'm laying on a bed and my bum is super clenched. I'm like, I can feel the tension in my pelvis. I can feel the tension even in my knees. And that was another eye opener. Here I am thinking I'm all relaxed, but really my body is reacting differently. Maybe I feel I am strong and I'm handling this well, but my body is giving me different signals. And this is another factor here too. We don't often pay attention to what these things are. We are, or if we notice it, we are attributing it to something else. So I challenge you to start being more attentive to how you're feeling, watching yourself from the outside, looking at yourself with those interactions. Your mental capacity, multiple people are talking to you and how short you get, your sleep disruptions, just unexplained aches and pains. And ask yourself, is this really because of X, or could it be because of the stress I'm facing? And there's a lot of research on the science behind how stress impacts your body. The worry from, hyperventilating, from high blood pressure, even type 2 diabetes. So a lot of issues that we see impacting the body from head to toe. So it's a serious thing to consider. And then you have the emotional turmoil of just dealing with this, you're stressed, and then you don't have the necessary coping skills or the emotional intelligence of how to manage all of this. Let me tell you, I recently found out in the last few years that I thought I was pretty strong in my EI, only until I have my teenagers. I recognize that I still have a long way to go as it pertains to managing teenagers. So sometimes the emotional aspect coupled with what you're facing just amplifies the whole experience even more. The anger, the irritability, and it could go on the other side into a depressive mode, or even a lot of sadness, just unable to deal with it, coming home. And you're probably doing really well in the workplace, but then coming home and breaking down, or just laying on the couch, exhausted, can't do anything, just waiting for the next day to happen. And then I was mentioning earlier on too, if we have leaders in the group, that making sure that you are attentive to your colleagues, recognizing those people that are reducing in their productivity, their personality, they're not as jovial, they don't have that go-gettingness anymore. They're coming in, they're irritated, they're just, nonchalant about the work. They're just socially withdrawn. So being, intentional about observing your colleagues and what potentially they're experiencing. And that's where you can ask that question, Nicole, how are you doing? I notice that you're not your usual cherry self. Just a simple leaning in, empathetic type of response could be what that person needs to start talking about it. And again, wanting to stress that not because you have A performers around you means that everything is good. They suffer too, but they may choose to show, or they may choose not to show it, but only behind closed doors. So they're not immune. One thing I'd like to emphasize too is that, we are passionate about our work, and that is a super dark side of passion. Passion can lead to burnout because, again, we want to do things and give and help our organization, help the people that we serve, be committed to our work and produce the best. But while passion can be the driving force of success, it is a double-edged sword and can lead to burnout because of that chronic stress. Everything is about your job and it must be a certain way, and you got to take care of your team. The organization needs you, and all of these things starts leading up to that chronic stress. So I've given you this journey about the impact of stress, how stress could affect us. Let's look now to ensure that you have tools in your tool belt for stress management. At the end of the day, we want to come in and feel like we're living purposeful lives, be happy with our job, satisfied, be able to manage appropriately without pulling our hair out, and just making sure that we are there for our teams. We're there in 100% of what we need to be for the people that we serve and the organization. So addressing it, whether for yourself, for your team, or organizational, is quite crucial. So how do we mitigate stress? How do you reignite your career? And at the end of this, I would like to hear from you to any techniques that you have used, your own journey that you want to share, because it is with sharing your experiences that it gives other people hope, or they relate to you. Oh my gosh, you know what? I was experiencing that, but you know what? I'm going to try that and see how it works for me. So being able to be open with what you've experienced will certainly help others get their mojo back. A lot of people are struggling internally. They're trying to make decisions, sometimes some really bad decisions, but you never know where your suggestion or your story is going to help uplift somebody. Again, they can be looking quite normal, a high performer, but having these conversations is always, it provides like an internal band-aid for a lot of people. So the first thing we do is evaluating our emotional intelligence, recognizing what are your triggers in your job. At what point do you start getting irritable or short? Your state of mind, how many things you have going on in your head. Again, it could be personal and professional, all kind of wrapped up simultaneously, and then having to deal with somebody else on top of all of that. So the key thing for you is recognizing your triggers. I can tell you a personal trigger: when my teenagers roll their eyes at me, I will go from 0 to 100 in a split second. So, but that's, just a very superficial example, but you have these stressors at work. Your experience, how many years you've been in the industry, you know the type of environments that you thrive in. Yeah, you know the type of people that you like to work with. You know the people that would trigger you. So being reflective, again, especially when you're changing jobs, you are accepting roles. Recognize again, what are the demands, and then what are your triggers? At what point do you start going into overdrive, and then potentially you can lose your marbles, right? Communication, this is a big one. And again, I think in my earlier years, I would say maybe that my first 10 years of my career or even longer, I was an absolute introvert. Who you see right now is not who I was a few years ago. So I had to learn to be vocal about what I was feeling, what I was experiencing, even as a leader. Again, recognizing, oh gosh, how much do I share? How vulnerable do I get? Making sure that, not so much that I felt like people would see me as I'm weak, but I had others depending on me too. So I don't necessarily want to be vulnerable to the team that's needing me to be strong for them. But learning how to communicate and get your team to help manage the workload, or just have conversations with them, in terms of setting boundaries, is going to be crucial as well. Pettis said, I've used exercise for years to help cope with stress, and about 3 years ago sought out a therapist to deal with deep-seated issues, which was very helpful. That there is amazing, because I think a lot of time people are trying things that are going to help in the short term, but sometimes recognizing that you need to go beyond that. And that is a key point here too. If you are, and use the word so far gone, if you're deep into stress and the impact to your behavior, to your psyche, to your health, there needs to be some stronger intervention. Nicole can't get into those layers. And those interventions could be, yes, a therapist, it could be psychologist, and it could be some pretty strong medication too. I recently I did a presentation for healthcare and psychedelics. And let me tell you, when I was done with that presentation, I was like, I think I need to try this. It's amazing to see some of the results that it's giving people who are facing PTSD and chronic stress as well. But no judgment there. I thought it was really intriguing, but it is definitely another layer to help people jumpstart their brain pretty much, especially when, there is some benefit with creating new neural connections, and even better than some of these antidepressive drugs. So quite eye-opening for me with learning more about that. So here are some techniques for you. And again, you can start sharing some of your own techniques for the rest of the audience here. But first, I need to recognize my emotions. How am I feeling? Why am I so cranky? Why am I so irritable? What am I experiencing? Is it stress? Is it just a one-off thing? And again, some of these things, they stretch us, and it's okay. We'll have some short-term response, but is this now your new you? Is this your repetitive behavior? Now, in the immediate recognition of that, we're getting upset, we're getting stressed about something. We can, of course, go through a lot of these techniques people were talking about, the meditation, the mindfulness, the deep breathing. There's a lot of different techniques out there. Just as my experience with yoga and meditation, I think sometimes you got to try it a few times. I explored sound therapy recently, both low-level frequency, high-level frequency, and I was quite intrigued. Like, I actually felt, and please, again, just sharing experiences here, but I actually felt like my brain was going into different levels. It sounds quite crazy, but that's what people talk about. And to be honest, I felt like I went into another layer of creativity at high frequency, and at low frequency, I felt super relaxed and chill. And my personality is always, I tell people I'm like a Bugatti, just always racing around the racetrack. But I do have my down moments, but that really got me into feeling super relaxed and enjoying the moment, being here in the present. Other sound therapy, bowl therapy, somebody introduced that to me, and I was like, let me give that a try. And I was super intrigued in that one too, because as it was playing, I could almost feel like my neurons, they were getting tickled to the point like I did feel stress was leaving my body. Now, in that moment, again, I can't say that I was feeling like, super stressed or anything, just everyday normal life stuff, but not anything to say, oh my gosh, I was having a really hectic, stressful day. So I was intrigued with it. So I haven't explored that quite often, but it's there if I feel like, hey, I'd like to try this out. I like the relaxation. So something for you to consider if you'd like to explore that. Are you a workaholic? Maybe it's time to change your approach to work. Work is always going to be there. Sometimes we have these self-imposed demands on ourselves. So for example, my team, when I'm rounding, asking them how they're going, but they're looking like, chickens without a neck. And I'm like, what's going on? Oh, the list is long. Well, what do you mean? Well, don't we do just one person at a time? Yeah, but the physician's going to call and ask about a patient. Has he called? No. Well, if he calls and communicates exactly what's happening with the patient list, right? I got 10 patients right now. Your patient is number 10. I think it's probably going to be another 30 minutes or so. But sometimes we have these self-imposed type of thinking that we need to move faster. We need to get everything done right now. And I think that's kind of, especially in the digital age, we're always bombarded with information and expected to give a response. So, pace yourself, look at your workload, set your priorities, identify with what you need to do based on your strategic goals, but also make time to take a break. Because again, my friends, your health is your wealth. Take time to get a breath in, take time to, calm down with the storm of all the operational stuff that's going on with you, and then get a few minutes to clear your mind. I also think that when we try to slow down, we feel guilty, and it adds another layer of stress. And I will say that in my experience of this, oftentimes I feel my experience has shown me that women feel even more guilty for taking a break. There's so much to do, especially if they got family, all of these home responsibilities. So that layer of guilt just adds more to the stress. But again, it's important. We're not machines, right? We're human beings, not human doers. So we're just like we have preventative maintenance and downtime with our equipment, we need to do the same for us. Physical activity, of course, there's always a plug for that, spending time with it. And again, I used to be quite guilty of this too. It's like, gosh, I don't have an hour to give, but I need to walk for an hour, get my 10,000 steps in. But then, you know what? 5 minutes a day. Then it went up to 10 minutes. I'm here at my standing desk, I can do some exercises, I can lift my weights while I'm making my breakfast. So I started making these little adjustments because my life was chaotic. And this was, again, up until a few years ago in corporate America. So, but I was disappointed with myself because I couldn't get that physical activity in. But then I started to just say, even if I did 5 minutes a day, I felt good about it. Because over time, looking at a cumulative effect of that. Can't imagine not exercising to deal with stress. And it depends on the person, right? Some people, it's just not their thing. But yeah, it is a significant outlet, playing a game, just forcing yourself to even just be still, watching a movie, scrolling through social media. Those could all be things to decompress in itself. Express feelings. I typically know who I can call. Who is in your tribe that you can call? Do you know the people that you can just pick up the phone and vent? Misery loves company. You should have somebody that you can just vent to. But keep in mind, we want to make sure that we're just not vomiting on somebody and having them hold on to that. We want to be mindful of what they have going on in their life. So, asking permission. Hey, Bob, I'm really having some tough times here. This is like week 3 and I'm just not coping well. I'm just calling you to vent here. Can you do this with me? So asking permission to, because sometimes you think somebody has the mental capacity or bandwidth for you to spew, and they don't. So be mindful of that as well. Journaling is always a good one. Write out how you feel. And I am not I don't think journaling is for me, but some people do swear by it, that they feel that this is a way to express their feelings in a private manner as well. And then being able to look back and see your own growth from there. Relaxation, as we talk about, there's a variety of them, but really trying to ensure that you are trying multiple and giving it multiple opportunities to see if it works for you. Positive self-talk. I'm not necessarily one for this as well, but I do have one phrase that I use quite often if I find myself in really stressful, long-term stress. Nicole, is this going to make you or break you? And more than likely, my answer is I want it to make me. Okay, so regroup. How are you going to deal with this? What strategy, what action do you need to take? So once I start, once I recognize that my shoulders have been a block for the last couple of weeks, or, I'm feeling the effects of it, I have that little bit of a talk, making sure that my emotion, logical brain connection is there, that I'm not letting emotion overtake me. And of course, time management and how much you are expecting yourself to do. Are you a perfectionist? Do you need the house a certain way? Do you need to have your projects, to perfection, but it's costing you your time? Based on the urgency and importance, you would go for 24 hours without sleep or anything just to get something accomplished. But recognizing, again, what is your dominant style? Gone are the days, I'm not too worried about the house being cleaned, even looking at outsourcing some items. I used to outsource even my ironing a few years ago. Fortunately, I have support to help with the housework and things like that. But look at where you can ask for help. And if you can't ask for help, can you outsource it? A lot of us are buying time these days. Have you recently bought a pre-boiled egg or pre-peeled orange? We don't have the time to peel an egg or peel an orange. It's telling us something about society, and that struggle is real. I do have quite a bit of colleagues that do that. So, but recognize too, where can you buy time? It's not necessarily a bad thing, but there is opportunity for you to buy time. And then one of the key things to mitigate your stress is asking yourself, what is the time period for this? Because this too shall pass. Is it a month? Is it a quarter? Is this a year? So when I was building my business several years ago, it's like, I know I got to go through this, the ups and downs of it for a few years, but this too shall pass. And when I focused on what the end result is, I didn't have to get worked up about it and felt like felt super stressed about it every day. That chronic stress, I'm keeping that at bay because I know that there is an end. So you ask yourself, is there an end right now for this? And if there isn't, then we really need to make some major adjustments there. One of the key things I find that leads to chronic stress is control. So many of us, and I used to be one of these too, like control. You want a certain outcome, you want a certain, you want to control the situation. But, the minute I release that control and just being like a plastic bag, being adaptable and agile, I felt like, gosh, I'm not stressed about anything. You're really wanting a certain outcome. You want your team to be this, all of these things you want control of. And that just adds this whole other layer of stress because you're not getting the results that you want. So reflect, see what you need to release control of, what winds you up, and then maybe asking yourself too, why am I getting wound up about this? Am I holding on to control? Do I want a certain outcome? I'm trying to control the outcome, but really you can't control it. So have some self-reflection there as well. Now, I know some of you are probably engineers in the room here, definitely not claiming to be one, but looking at, just the concept of tensile strength. Do you know your breaking point or your morphing point? Morphing could be good for some of us. It creates us like me. I went from a complete introvert to look at me now. So yeah, the stresses over time has put me in a situation that, no, I can't be an introvert anymore. This is who I need to be. So that changed me, morphed me into a stronger person that I'm continuing to improve to be. But also it can be our breaking point. Back to my statement, Nicole, is this going to make me or break me? So recognizing that stress shapes us, right? It stretches us, just like here we see, we have that opportunity for the material to bend a bit, but then you come to a point that you continue bending until it breaks. But for us, we may not know what that breaking point is until you become more reflective, until you become in tune with your situation, your symptoms. So being mindful that even though you can be stretched beyond what you think you could achieve, that stretching may have a breaking point. Some of us, we don't know what our breaking point is until we're put in certain situations. For me, that was, one of the biggest, I guess, where I grew like bamboo significantly is with my job in Guam. I was faced with so many new situations in my career that I have never had to deal with. Talk about very, very stressful situations. And I had situations where I just wanted to walk away from my career because of what was happening. But again, recognizing that I understand what is happening. I understand how I'm feeling, my emotions, the impact to my mental health, etc. But how can I make sure that I have strategies in place for this to make me a stronger individual? So think about that for yourself as well. One of the key strategies here to reduce your stress, or at least maybe adapt or change your situation, is having crucial conversations. There's a really good book, cannot remember or maybe I have it here, but Crucial Conversations. If you're unable to navigate some of these challenging conversations, it gives you a good foundation of how to approach it. And again, you have a heavy workload. Maybe you need to have a crucial conversation in the workplace with your boss or a colleague, or maybe it's with your significant other or your parent or sibling. So all of these would apply in those cases. So having those crucial conversations require 5 main things here: starting from the heart, making it safe, telling your version of it and making sure that it is a factual version, stating what you need, and then a move to action. So for example, I may say, okay, Mark, for the last 2 months, I have been working 80 hours a week, and it seems like it's not letting up. Mark, I'm coming to you with this because I need your help to develop a solution here. I'm telling you, I cannot continue like this for the next 2 months. My work is not the quality that I want. My team requires me, and I am just not able to produce. There's too much happening now. And I feel like I've come to you, I've told you, things aren't going so well in the department, the needs that we have. And I understand that you're busy, but we need to just have a moment here to figure out what we're going to do next. So that's where I say, starting with the heart, not, a lot of us, sometimes we come from, well, you this, and, very defensive type of language. So really emphasizing what you're experiencing, what you need out of this conversation. I want us to draw a line in the sand and see what duties that I can continue with, and maybe what we need to park or delegate. And let me tell you, that in itself is an art, because a lot of times emotions get into the way. The person doesn't give you the validation or acknowledgement that you're seeking, and that conversation goes from 0 to 100 as well. So here are some examples, and again, focusing on you or the situation. Mark, I've been feeling very overwhelmed recently. I'm really good at executing here, but the number of tasks right now, given the operation, it just isn't the workload. I am telling you that I'm being very diligent and productive, but the workload is causing me to work about 16 to 18 hours a day. I am taking homework, and it's still not enough. Could we discuss how we could realign our priorities? I think we're juggling too many initiatives. How about we have a regroup conversation there to see what would align more to our organization's strategic goals, so that way I can be more, I can deliver better for you and the team, something like that. But let me tell you, that takes practice as well. So you have a variety of approaches there that you can certainly navigate, but that book would be quite helpful for you. Now, one way to reduce some of the chronic stress that you face are putting boundaries. I wish we were in front of a live crowd here. We'd ask, how many of you are comfortable putting up boundaries? Not many of us. I would assume here, based on your level of stress earlier on, I would say maybe the bulk of you here are able to put those boundaries. And again, it's personality, it's culture-based, it's gender-based, all of these things influence to implementing boundaries. Boundaries are okay. Don't let other people make you feel guilty about it. If you need to put a boundary in for your own mental health, and it's the approach to it, right? It's not like, yeah, after 8 hours, I'm done. It's just making sure that you're coming with the right pitch, tone, and volume, coming to a collaborative type of solution, showing the impact of it. I want to respect other people's time. I am a 360 individual, from work. I want to come and participate in my ASQ meetings. I got my kids' soccer practice. So just wanting to make sure that we are respecting people, that they have other commitments outside of work. So the way that you bring the way that you have those conversations is going to be crucial too. Now, you as a leader on the receiving side of it, somebody coming to you to say, wait a minute, this has been going on too long. I am stressed beyond recognition. The key thing here is active listening and validation. Listening, leaning into it, not multitasking when somebody comes in telling you, having these types of conversations here. Emotional validation. Thank you for sharing this. I acknowledge how you feel. That in itself, just somebody saying, that they acknowledge how you feel, that what you're experiencing, it gives a little bit of reprieve there as well. From a leader standpoint, if that person, because emotion has clogged everything, they're just unable to process a solution. A lot of people are like, oh, bring me a solution. Recognize in some cases, I can't see the trees through the fog. So you as a leader may need to step in to offer a collaborative problem or a collaborative solution. Sometimes depending again on the leader, the organizational culture, boundaries are hard to set. Some people may push, and depending on that personality, power dynamics, everything come to play, that people cower under that. So they don't have boundaries. So recognizing that you may be a workhorse, but the employee or your team member may not be like you. Some people talk about, well, my boss doesn't have kids, they're empty nester, they're near retirement, they can work all they want, and they're expecting me to do so. So recognize too, maybe, what you're projecting on somebody or the expectations that you have for them compared to, what is required from the department. Offering to help. This is a huge one. Coming in with your team, hey, I'll sit and answer phone calls for 5 minutes. I'll come and work side by side with you for an hour. That by itself is a huge stress reliever. And it gives the employee or the team member the gusto and the energy to say, yes, I can continue this. You know what? When I have support, it's just awesome to know that somebody has your back. And then, as I said, building your village of support. Who are the people that you can call? Who are the people that can give you that kick in the behind, can give you that word of encouragement? Who are those that can help support you? It's just not one person. And it also may require that special level of expertise as we talk about. The psychologist, a psychiatrist, a coach, a mental health provider, all of these people may need to be in your village of support. Sometimes that is how much is needed to get you out of where you are. All right, and as we come up to the last few slides here, let's talk about reigniting your mojo. I'm sure there are many touch points in your career, like, okay, I'm done, time to retire, or time to move on to something else. And for whatever reason, you continue to stay. And you stay, and then you still are cynical, the situation isn't changed. Maybe month after month, year after year, you're thinking about the same thing, you're questioning yourself why you're still here. So let's talk about how do we navigate that. The first thing is most of us don't recognize that we have the power of choice. You have the choice to leave your job. You have the choice to stay. So I know there are other factors that may come involved. The kids need to graduate, my benefits, all of these things. But at the end of the day, we have the power of choice. What we are usually concerned of are the consequences. If I leave my job, I lose my benefits. Or if I leave, I need to figure out moving. I had a colleague just left her job, and she wanted to leave her job, and she decided to stay because she was like, no, if I leave this job, I got to go figure out where to live, find schools. I can't deal with that in my life right now. Okay, you decide to stay, then you have to deal with the consequences. You have a poor work environment. That was your choice. Usually, when the pain of switching, when the pain of what you're experiencing is greater than the pain of switching, that's when you make a decision. Let me say that again. When the pain of what you're experiencing is greater than the pain of switching, that's when you're more inclined to make that decision. So if I am really, really stressed and upset in my job, if that's greater than, oh gosh, I got to go find a place, I got to sell my house, then I'm going to make the decision. So the switching cost is what we think about here. The environment and the culture, is it going to change? Can I go have a vulnerable conversation with my boss and let them know what I'm experiencing? Can we draw the line in the sand? Can we regroup here, create a strategy? If no, then are you going to accept it or change it? Can you establish boundaries? Maybe you have, one of those not so good bosses there, and you're unable to have crucial conversations because they're going to hold a judge or a grudge, or maybe they're going to withhold your promotion or your bonus. That culture is going to really dictate how you feel about your career, how you feel about coming to work every day. That person is going to really rile up your anxiety and the stress as it relates to your job. So the environment and the culture is a huge one. What the client that I told you who is being bullied, she is 63, I believe. Anyways, she was counting down the days to retirement. She's like, yes, I can do it. And her spouse is like saying, yeah, you can do this. You've been around the block. But it came to the point where the environment and culture dictated that I can't have a good conversation with this leader. And then also I can't set boundaries because she's not going to allow that. I have all of these things against me, but she was trying every day to go to work and try to do her best. And then she was like, nope, I'm done. I am not going to do this anymore. The power of choice. So recognizing the switching cost and making that choice. One of the other things to reignite your mojo is just get enough sleep. We are in a chronic sleepless environment here because we value productivity more than our mental health. We're just conditioned in the Western world to think about that. But recognizing that we need unproductive moments as well. Just like our equipment, we need that downtime so our body can rest and recuperate. Then there is the whole, do I consider a sabbatical? Do I stay? Do I go? So if your organization allows it, sure. You may not even think that it's an option, but just having mere conversations with your supervisor. I'd like to take a break for about 2 or 3 months. You know, if they really value you as an employee, and this can speak volume to, you know, the culture and the leadership as well, they may allow you to have it, or a reduced workload. And again, it depends on the organization. It depends on their resources as well. But there are opportunities there for you to request a sabbatical, leave without pay, if there's not a formal policy or process in place. And as I said, do we decide to stay or go? If we stay, we accept these consequences, knowing that my life is going to be like this, the impact on my health, how am I every day to showing up to my colleagues or to my family and friends? So recognizing the consequences of that and accepting it. If that's the decision, then accepting the decision without riling yourself up and being more stressed about it, and every day still having these complaints. I've got colleagues like that, you know, it's like, and I hate this job, you know, my boss is this, but you decided to stay. This is what we know are going to be the consequences of it. But coming back to those switching costs. The other thing too is you not only the power of acceptance, but recognizing what you have control over. And we just got a couple more here. Recognizing what you have control over. I can't control the attitudes of others, but I can control my attitude. I can control how I show up, my mindset. I used to tell my team, you got to suit up, right? We're coming into war every day here. This environment is harsh. You got to have the right mindset to be able to deal with this. You got to have the right tools in your tool belt to navigate the hard environment. So when you start having some level of releasing control, accepting, changing the mindset, you definitely don't have that. You can release some of that stress that you're experiencing. Some people say, you know what, forget this, I don't care anymore, and they have a very nonchalant attitude. I'm not going to go to that extreme, but maybe you are giving and giving and giving, and it's time to pull back. Or maybe this is just temporary and your reaction to it, you know, going through the changes of the phases of change and all of these, you know, you have that emotional outburst to it. So recognizing what you're experiencing, the stages that you're going through to determine, what do I need to do? Am I just, you know, in emotional state? Am I not thinking about this illogically? What do I need to do here? And then also the other thing too is evaluating your history. How often do you get like this? Are there certain situations that trigger you? And again, making sure that, am I in the same cycle, or do I know what I need to do to deal with this? Our mind is very powerful with that whole dealing. And then ask yourself, is there such thing as a work-life balance in this organization? If that's you chasing the unicorn and it doesn't exist, then maybe that's not the right environment for you. That's a learning lesson. Throughout your career, you've gone through various environments. You know where you thrive, right? I'm a hot weather person. I like 85 degrees, high humidity, and hot sun. That's where I thrive. But I live 7,000 feet up here in Flagstaff. I deal with it. I enjoy it. I like it. But is this like the optimal place for me? No. So similarly to you, what is your situation and your level of acceptance with it? That in itself is going to reduce that stress on your neck for a long time. And then this FMLA. A lot of people don't like to use FMLA because it's a stigma. Listen, the HR folks designed it for you to use it. If you really need to use it to get your mental health back into play, to get your your stress under control, to re-find yourself, reignite your mojo and come back fresh again, why not? It's there for a specific reason. Don't be embarrassed to use it. Not because Joe over there doesn't, seems to be coping well means that you have to be the same way. We're all built differently. So acknowledging that there are resources, some of us are going to use it and some of us may not. I will leave you with this one message. As you think about the different ways that you can reignite your career by reducing your stress, setting your boundaries, trying different techniques, phoning a friend, having crucial conversations, want to emphasize again the focus on putting your oxygen mask first. Because if you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. All right, Hillary, that's all I have for tonight. Any questions? I'll pass it off to you.
All right. Thanks so much, Nicole, for your amazing insight. I'm sure this is going to be beneficial to many people, including myself. I know that it will be beneficial to me. Do we have any questions for Nicole this evening?
I have one. I have a neighbor who's a medical doctor for children. And whenever I see him, he looks totally stressed out and exhausted. And my understanding is that they work either 12 or 24-hour shifts. Is there any reason why we should still support that kind of a work schedule for doctors, or should we, take into consideration their health and new technology that can make them work just like, normal person shifts?
Yes, Josh, 100%. Let me tell you, we incentivize no sleep, right? We put people on call, we dangle money in front of them for double pay, triple pay. And again, because people are willing to do it, it's there. One of my organizations, I tried to implement a lack of rest policy like the airline industry. Listen, if you worked 8 hours or 10 hours and then you came back on call for a procedure that took 3 to 4 hours, by the time you got home, you barely got 4 hours of sleep before you come back at 8 o'clock. One organization in my entire 24 years career, specifically with healthcare, was the only one that implemented a lack of rest, meaning that you don't come back to work and you get paid for that day. So, but I, being one of those two, dangling money in front of people because we need people. We can't afford to shut down a 24/7 operation. I cannot afford to not have an employee in a trauma center. I need that physician. So we allow this, and until we have a band of people saying, no, this isn't appropriate, or like other industries have put these safety measures in place, it's going to continue. So you're 100% right that we need to be attentive to it, but I just don't think that is a priority for a number of reasons. But yeah, quite terrible.
Look in the chat. We might have some additional questions. Just some comments. Does anyone have any additional questions for Nicole?
So maybe, Hillary, or for those of you in the chat there, maybe, what is one thing that you would recommend to others? Like, when people are just kind of swirling down here, how do I pick myself up and reinvent myself, reignite? What would be the one strategy you would recommend, or the one thing to do? What have you tried?
Well, I know for myself, it's just like carving time out of my schedule to spend some time on myself, to make time for me. So I think that's my biggest hurdle right now.
Making time for you. And you know what I would say to drive that point home, Hillary? You make time for what is important.
Right.
That once I had that told to me in my career, let me tell you, it changed my perspective, because I was making time for everybody else but myself. But I'm no use to anybody if I am not in tip-top shape, mentally, physically, emotionally. And again, the problem with a lot of us is that we wait until we're facing, these dire circumstances to make a change. We see it all the time in healthcare. People come after 60 years of smoking, a big mass in their lung, and it's like, okay, I'm going to quit smoking. We wait until the end to fix it. Unfortunately, but I am here to promote, take care of yourself first. And I mean, I say it to you that way, meaning it could be for anybody, but I think that's a very powerful statement for anybody. You know, you make time for what is important. If your health is important, you'll make time for it. If your family is important, you make time for them. If you want, and that's one of the key things for me, is like, I know I want to be around for a long time. I want to see my grandkids. I want to experience the world in 2050. So I'm going to make sure that I make time for myself.
Yeah. Is there anyone else with a question for Nicole?
Oh, let's see, Mark. Decompressing and going on a vacation or staycation. You know, recently I met quite a few directors who's like, I don't even want to go on a vacation anymore because I'm nervous when I come back. The emails, the to-do tasks. So a lot of people, at least in the last year or so that I've been talking to, is like, no, I don't think I'm going to go on vacation. It just adds too much stress. I go and I try to decompress, then I'm thinking of work. I want to check my phone, my laptop. So many of us still have problems disconnecting, but yes, it's still a good thing to just forget everything, go enjoy yourself, unproductive moments of productivity, and come back refreshed. Ideal, but some organizations make people feel guilty like that too. Mark says, a simple, silly stress management thing that I use every day. Used to come home from some bad days at work and bad traffic, walked in the door at home, and the messiness of the day would carry its way into our home. Thanks for sharing. A simple mental trick. I focus on the front door closing, where the edge of the door meets the door jamb as a shift mechanism. Powerful. Leaving it outside. You're right. Leave the baggage at the door. Indeed. Transitioning. Well done, Marka. Leaving it outside. Enjoy every moment after that door closing. Joking, laughing, leaving all the bad stuff on the other side of the door. A simple thing that works for me, family is much happier too. Very good strategy there, Mark. Really enjoyed that. Oh yeah, I definitely resonate with that. Coming home and it's like, you know, all day people are at me and then I come home and it's mom, honey, mommy, this. And it's like, ah, but yes, leaving it at the door and then focusing on what is in front of you and enjoying that as well. 100% agreed. I don't see any more comments there, Hillary. I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much, Nicole. I really appreciate it. It's an insightful presentation, and I'm looking forward to putting to use many of those things that you mentioned in your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, just a few more slides to share, and I do apologize for earlier. I thought I had my laptop plugged in. It looked like it was plugged in, but apparently it was not actually in the wall. So that is what happened when when I left the group. Let me see. Find it. That's not it. Stop share. Find it again. Hang on. Right here. Right. So we are at let's see. Yeah. We go. Slideshow. All right. So this is just a friendly reminder that survey or meeting evaluation surveys will be sent out by our VOC chair, Tuck Cox. You should receive them in the email that is associated with your ASQ account. Once you do, please take just a few minutes to finish that survey, as they do assist us in improving your experience for member meetings to come. And our 2024 program schedule, we are hoping to provide you, as the ASQ Phoenix SLT, 12 hybrid in-person virtual meetings, 4 per quarter with a guest speaker, 1 tour of a company winery or brewery, which this is currently in the works. We're looking at wineries in town that might be able to um, that might be able to provide services for a larger group. This would be, of course, in person only. And then one community outreach event, such as Feed My Starving Children, Habitat for Humanity, or St. Mary's Food Bank. One of those events. This would also be in person only. And then keep your sights on the member meeting that's coming up on June 13th of this year. It'll be on using Lean Six Sigma to address 4 top cost savings opportunities in the clinical laboratory, and will be presented by Katie Benio, who has presented for us before. Forward. If you are interested in connecting with the Phoenix section and learning more about what we have to offer, please check us out on social media. We can be found on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Are there any final thoughts, comments, or questions prior to signing off for the evening? All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your attendance this evening. I hope that you remain safe, that you stay healthy and stay connected, and that you will join us next month for our member meeting. Until then, bid you farewell. Have a great evening.
Good night. Thanks, Hillary, for allowing the opportunity. Take care.
Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate it.